When Christians start going through hard times, the number one question they ask is, what is God trying to teach me here? Well, what if I tell you that's the wrong question? What's the right question? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today on Bible and Life, my channel where we try to understand the Bible accurately so we can live it powerfully. You may have noticed there's a new theme song. That's from my friend Dave Cook, who composed it specifically for the Bible and Life. And if you're watching and there's Spanish subtitles on your version, that's because my friend Enzo Vargas is translating and putting up subtitles for all our friends in specifically South America and Bolivia, Cochabamba. Shout out to all my friends in Cochabamba and his friends in Argentina. And if you have anybody who speaks Spanish better than English, you may want to turn them on to this version of Bible and Life. Now, back to trials. What's the deal? What's God got going on when he lets bad things happen in your life? Because I believe God's totally in control. So if bad things are happening, as I like to say, if it got to you, God let it through. So why is God allowing bad things or things we would consider bad in our lives? Well, James chapter 1 verse 2 says something that's just hard for all of us to wrap our head around. He says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. Consider it pure joy, because you know the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Now, what we want to say is God's letting those trials in so we can learn something. And then we get into the trial, and what we're trying to do is find out what we're supposed to learn so we can check the learned it box off and be done with the trial. But the purpose isn't knowledge. The reason God allows trials in your life is not knowledge. It's maturity. One of my favorite passages that talks about this is Romans 8, verses 28 and 29. It starts out with a real popular verse everybody loves, verse 28. "We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." But here's the deal. Who gets to define the word good here? Yeah, that'd be God, because it's his word. And how does God define good? He defines good in the next verse. So all things work together for good, but the good, verse 29, "For those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, so that he might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters." So if you're predestined to be conformed to the image of Jesus Christ, and trials are going in your life, that's part of the all things that are going on, God's purpose isn't to make you smarter, it's to make you more holy, to make you more like Jesus. So it's not, I figured it out, I know what's going on. A lot of times we say, hey, I figured it out, God can end the trial. God's purpose isn't to let you know something, it's to let you be something, to become something. The question isn't, have I learned anything? The question is, have I been transformed by this trial? So a couple years ago, I was taking my dog Murray for a walk. And toward the end, there's a good uphill stretch. And during that stretch, I started feeling a pain just below my breastbone in my chest. And I'm going, that's not a good thing. So I went to the doctor, and I'm sort of feeling stressed because I'm going to the doctor. And you know what the heart doctor wanted to do because I was feeling stressed about the pain? Yeah, he wanted to give me a stress test. So they put all kinds of things, put stuff all over my chest, little diodes and electrodes, and they hooked me up to a machine, and they put me on a treadmill, and they had me walk until I had trouble keeping going. They put me under stress. Why? Because the stress showed them where the problems were. Okay? They had all these machines and all these things, and where it lit up, that's a problem. And then I went in for a surgery where they stuck a wire up inside of me and checked again to see where there was a problem. And when they found the problem, they could then fix it, but they couldn't address it till they found it. And the way they found it was putting me under stress. God does something very similar with us. He puts us under stress so both he and we can see where the problems are so they can be addressed. There are 3 questions we need to ask ourselves when we're going through trials, when things are going bad. First, what is this revealing about my relationship with God? If I'm getting angry at God because I'm in a stressful situation, that says something about my trust for God and my relationship with God. Second question, what's it revealing about my relationships with others? Everybody want to raise your hand if you've been in a relationship when things got stressful outside and how that impacted how you dealt with each other and how that showed you where the cracks were in your relationship? Sure, that's on the machine. They got stressed up to your heart for the stress test. That started glowing red because there's a problem there. A lot of times a relationship with humans doesn't even make it through a problem because the stress reveals a problem that's too big to get fixed. And if you're married, in your married life, you've been in a stressful situation and you had to figure out how to fix your relationship in light of that stress. So what's this stress revealing about my relationship with God? And what's this stress revealing about my relationship with others? And question 3, and we're going to spend a lot of time on this one. Where am I being tempted because of this trial? Oh, see, there's a difference between trials and temptations. Now, a lot of people think they're the same thing, but they're not. We may even look at that in an upcoming episode, the difference between trials and temptations. But trials are just God allowing bad things in our lives. Temptations are us wanting to do bad things. And a lot of times the trial, the stress, we'll start looking for a temptation, or we'll start getting tempted to do something that is wrong that will either get us out of the stressful situation or will alleviate some of the stress. So what temptation is popping up in this trial? Because that'll show a place where I've got a problem. In Psalm 3, David is talking about, he's reflecting on a stressful situation, a very stressful situation. If you remember the life of David, there was a point when his son Absalom tried to stage a coup. He kicked David out of the palace. And Psalm 3 starts out with the line, this is a psalm of David when he fled from his son Absalom. So David is under stress. And listen to how he says it at the beginning, just to show you just how much this is a trial. This is a stress thing. He says, Lord, how many are my foes? How many rise up against me? Many are saying of me, God will not deliver him. So there's a stress and people are saying he's not going to make it through this trial. But he responds with a non-temptation. He responds with a very, very awesome response in verse 3. But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high. See, and there's a big area of temptation, because when I'm tempted, I start looking for somebody other than God to deliver me. I love that little image. Lord, you're a shield around me. You're the barrier. You make a castle for me. But you're my glory, the one who lifts my head high. And there's 3 different phases you can think of with your head in that situation. One is when you're in a trial, when things are going wrong, your head can be down. You're looking down. You're despondent. And then the first thing that happens is I picture God reaching down and touching you by the chin, lifting your head out of the trial and looking into his glorious presence. But it doesn't just say lifts my head, it's lifts my head high. See, not only does God lift our head out of the despondent position, he lifts us up to where we're we're in his presence, where we're getting his glory in our lives. Now, here's the question. When I'm in a trial, when things are going bad, I tend to get despondent and I look for something to lift my head. And if I'm not looking at God, what am I running to instead of God to get me out of this trial or to get me out of the bad feelings that come with the trial, to help me deal with the stress and the worry and the concern? Am I running to God to solve the problem, or am I running to God to make me feel good about the problem? Now, Tim Keller, he defined an idol as one of 3 things. It's anything for us that's more important than God. Number 2, it's anything that absorbs our heart and imagination more than God, anything that we see as greater than God that way. Or the third thing, and this is the one that happens in a trial, anything we seek that can give us what only God can give. See, the only one who can raise our heads honestly, the only one who can lift us up high honestly, is God. So the question then becomes, what am I trusting instead of God? See, there's where the temptation comes in. What am I trusting to either get me out of this situation or make me feel better in this situation beside God? What am I trusting to get me through this situation? And what am I trusting to make me feel better? Sometimes I have a tendency to trust my skills because I'm a very competent person. Like, you're probably a very competent person. So when we get into a trial, when we get into something going wrong, our first response is, how can I fix this? Now, there's nothing wrong with going to work and finding solutions. That's not the problem. But am I trusting myself more than I'm trusting God? Am I trusting my skills instead of trusting God? Because sometimes God doesn't want to work through my skills. He wants to work a different way. One of the things that can be biggest in a trial is God minimizes our skills. God makes it so our skills aren't capable of accomplishing anything to get us out of this bad situation. Or sometimes we depend on our stuff. What have we accumulated? And sometimes God will give us like this limited supply or no access to our stuff that we would like to use to get out of the problem, because that shows us we're not trusting God. An even bigger problem is that I want to find something to distract me from the trial. I know I'm not going to get out of it, but I'm looking for a distraction. I'm trying to increase my pleasure. I'm trying to buy things. I'm sure you probably know people who use their phones to be a distraction from their trials. Things are going wrong, so here come the games, and here comes the social media, and here comes all the texting and all the things you can do with that phone or that technology to keep you away from thinking about your trials. A lot of times, I tend to use technology, and it could be a TV, it could be any of these things. I use the technology to try to be as a time machine to get me through the trial. Anybody saying ouch on that one? I think if I watch this show's going to take me an hour. If I watch this series on Netflix, that's going to eat up 4 or 5 hours on Netflix. And now I'm closer to whenever this trial's going to be over. But I'm not trusting God to give me peace during the trial. I'm trusting Netflix to give me peace during the trial. And some people will use alcohol and drugs and just all kind of pleasure, sex. People use a lot of things to distract them, to get them through the trial. So they're not trusting God to get them out of it, and they're also not trusting God to get them through it. But if you look back to Psalm 3, in verse 4, it says, I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I am trusting God in his presence to get me through it, and his power to help me conquer it, to conquer that trial. And then David gives us a test to see how well we're doing, and you're not going to like this test at all. Because the test in Psalm 3, verse 5 says, I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. A really good test as to whether or not I'm actually trusting God in a trial is, can I sleep? I don't know about you, but I've got 2 favorite things I like to do when it's time to go through a trial. Number 1 is worry. And number 2 is either not go to sleep at night or wake up in the middle of the night so I can worry even more about what's going on in this trial. A lot of times, the amount of hours I'm awake during the day don't give me enough time to worry enough about this problem I'm facing. Can anybody relate to that? When I can't get to sleep because of an issue, or when I keep waking up in the middle of the night because of an issue, that shows that I'm not trusting God. Of course, that's a really good opportunity to pray about it. If you're having trouble with a problem and you're in the middle of the night, what I start looking for is a distraction to help me get back to sleep instead of going to the one who can get me through the problem. Do you see a challenge right there? The very next Psalm, Psalm 4 in verse 8, expands on that concept and puts it this way. In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. I can sleep with peace if I'm trusting God and believing that he helps me live in safety. Matter of fact, the next verse in a couple places says that we're going to be, even no matter what the world throws at us, no matter what problems come in our way. Psalm 3 verse 6, back in Psalm 3, the next verse says, I will not fear though tens of thousands assail me on every side. No matter what problem God allows into my life, no matter what trial that I am facing, I should still be able to sleep if I am trusting God. And during the stress test of this trial, it shows me, am I really trusting God? Now, some of you are probably saying, Steve, isn't there a verse that says God will not put more on us than we can bear? Yes, there is, but it's talking about temptations, not trials. God will never tempt you beyond what you're able to bear. He'll try you beyond what you think you can handle. I have been under a table in the fetal position when God was putting me through a trial. And remember, it's not about me learning a lesson. The question is, what is he trying to develop in me through this trial? Let me give you 3 big things God develops in us through trials. Number 1, he develops humility, because then we quit counting on our stuff and our skills. He teaches us empathy, because we can then empathize with people who've been through similar stuff. And he teaches us dependence, because we need to be dependent on him. And as long as we're self-sufficient, as long as everything's going smoothly, I don't need to depend on God. Think about this. I only need to really depend on God when circumstances are so great that I can't depend on me or anybody else. Now, James 1:17, I want to look at 2 verses and we'll be done. In James 1:17, it says, "Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows." Every good and perfect gift is from above. Now, if God is using these trials to transform me into the image of Jesus Christ, is this trial a good thing or a bad thing? See, properly understood, trials are a very, very good thing, which brings us back to James chapter 1, verse 2, where we kind of started. "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds." I can consider them pure joy because these good and perfect gifts are doing an eternal good in me. All right. If you're getting a lot from Bible and Life, then like and subscribe and share. Tell people about it. If you have somebody who speaks Spanish, we've now got the Spanish version available. The link will be on my website, BibleLives.org, BibleLives.org. If you have questions or comments, make sure you send them to me. You can email them to me, or you can write them in the comment section or however you're getting these teachings. Again, the theme song is by my friend Dave Cook, and the Spanish subtitles are by other friend Enzo Vargas. Thank you guys both for those incredible things you're doing. And you guys have a great day, even if you're going through a trial.